Hello and welcome to this FiOS 1 News special presentation, Healing Hearts, Giving the Gift of Life. I'm Ron Lee. Thank you for joining us. Teams of doctors and nurses from the United States are turning despair into hope for lots of young children all around the world. One of their most recent medical missions took them to the Philippines, and it was made possible by the generosity of people from our area. And I went along with them.
Ko'y di makain, di rin makatulog buwat ng iyong lokohin.
This tiny little girl is one of 10 Filipino children who received life-saving heart surgery in September. And over the next half hour, we will introduce you to the businessman from Westchester who pushed to make this mission happen. We'll also hear from some of the people who raised the money to bring the equipment and the expert medical staff to the Philippine Children's Medical Center in Quezon City.
I think these kids all deserve, the best chance, and just because they may not have the privileges that some of the kids have in the United States, they're kids, they're innocent, so they deserve the best opportunity in life and not to suffer.
And we'll meet the children and families being cared for by Gift of Life International. We'll also hear from the grateful parents whose children's lives were saved. Plus, we spent a lot of time with the medical team, and we'll hear from these dedicated, globe-trotting doctors and nurses who are saving lives one heart at a time.
Gift of Life International is a Rotarian-based organization, and over the past 4 decades, it has helped more than 17,000 children from emerging countries receive treatment for their heart disease. These children, who come from 67 different countries, would otherwise have never been able to receive treatment.
You would hope to think that no child should have to suffer as long as some children in this world suffer. We are blessed in the United States that when a child has a heart disease, before they're 1 year old, they will be treated. That is not true in developing countries.
Here in the Philippines, a country comprised of more than 7,000 islands, population about 100 million. What we in America consider a middle class doesn't really exist. Some neighborhoods are littered with gorgeous high-rises and marked by extreme wealth. In other areas, we witness the kind of depressed, cramped, often dirty conditions that millions of Filipinos call home, even slums like this. The great divide between the haves and have-nots here in the Philippines makes a huge difference, especially when it comes to healthcare. Congenital heart disease is the #1 birth defect around the world. However, many Filipino parents with limited means simply can't afford the life-saving operation that could heal their child's heart. And that is where the Gift of Life comes in. Dr. Andy Lodge is a cardiac surgeon at Duke University Medical Center in North Carolina. He's also the team leader for this week-long mission to Quezon City, the former capital of the Philippines, in Metro Manila.
A lot of these children have heart defects that would have been corrected many months or years earlier in their lives if they were in the United States. So they have pretty advanced heart disease at the time that we're doing surgery on them. So it may take them a while to recover, but I think that ultimately they will recover and hopefully will be thriving in another year or so.
For 1 week in late September, our cameras followed Dr. Lodge and his medical team from Duke as they performed 10 corrective heart surgeries on kids as young as 10-month-old Hannah and 1-year-old Carl. The oldest patient was Arvin, a 16-year-old who rode in a plane for just the 3rd time in his life so that he could receive life-saving surgery. This experienced team, one of the best in the U.S., also closely monitored these young Filipino patients after their surgery, a surgery that they would likely have never received without the help of the Gift of Life Foundation. Gift of Life's main focus is to help children in third-world countries who have heart defects and whose families quite possibly will never have the money to afford corrective surgery. Over the course of 5 days, Dr. Carl Reyes, a cardiac surgeon based in the Philippines, worked closely with Dr. Andy Lodge to perform 10 open-heart surgeries here at the Philippine Children's Medical Center, a public institution. Dr. Reyes explained just how great the need is for the type of help that Gift of Life provides.
If you look at the numbers, there are about 17,000 children being born every year in the Philippines who have congenital heart disease. About 10 or 20% of them will likely need surgery at some point in their lives. And the capacity of the country to do surgery for heart disease is not that high. It's something like 500 to 600 cases per year.
The Gift of Life Foundation started with humble beginnings here in New York on Long Island. It began as a partnership between the Rotary Clubs in Manhasset and Kampala, Uganda. The first Gift of Life recipient underwent open heart surgery here in Roslyn at St. Francis Hospital. Grace Agwaru of Uganda was just 5 years old when doctors at St. Francis repaired a hole between the lower chambers of her heart. Nearly 40 years after that surgery, Grace now runs the Gift of Life program in Kampala at the Uganda Heart Institute. Rotarians like Diane Rotundelli of Lakewood, New Jersey, hope the young boys and girls who were operated on during this latest mission to the Philippines will also become the latest success stories to add to the legacy of Gift of Life.
It's very heartwarming. Anybody who has children, grandchildren, you can't imagine what it feels like for a parent to be here and know that they're going to get a chance at life. We take that for granted in the United States. We have everything at our fingertips. And for me, it's holding back tears because I do have children and grandchildren, and I've been very blessed.
Now to the team of 16 highly trained medical professionals from Duke University who went on a life-changing journey, one they will never forget. Conditions inside that hospital in the Philippines were in many ways different from what this team was accustomed to at home. But as you're about to see, their ability to tackle these challenges made the rewards of this mission even more satisfying.
Before they got started in the operating room for a grueling schedule of 10 open heart surgeries over 5 days, this medical team, led by Dr. Andy Lodge, had to fight off significant jet lag brought on by 3 flights and more than 20 hours of travel. The first leg had them flying from North Carolina to Michigan, where we met half the team.
How are you feeling right now?
Great.
Yeah? Rich, how are you feeling right now? Yeah? All right, we'll see you in a few hours, okay? Okay, sounds good.
More than half a day later, that very long flight finally touched down in Asia. But they weren't in the Philippines quite yet. After this brief stop in Japan, which included a coffee break, this dedicated and well-traveled team boarded their final flight and landed at Manila International Airport late Saturday night.
How are you feeling right now, Andrew?
I feel pretty good.
You feel pretty good? Tired?
With less than 8 hours to rest, day 1 of this Gift of Life mission started bright and early and offered little time for cardiologist Greg Tatum to ease into things as he worked with American surgeon Dr. Andy Lodge, Filipino surgeon Carl Reyes, and other local staff with the Philippine Children's Medical Center to screen all of the young patients who would be undergoing surgery that week. The only previous time that Duke University had participated in a Gift of Life mission to Quezon City was back in April of 2013, and that experience proved to be so life-changing that Michelle Figueres, an operating room nurse who used to live in the Philippines, and Samantha Kaiser, a perfusionist who operates the heart-lung machine during cardiac surgery, asked to be part of this latest mission. Much to their surprise, they were welcomed by these vibrant children who were patients just 18 months earlier.
It's very heartwarming. Like, you've seen them sick, and now they're doing so well. They have dreams. They're running around, no pain. It's just very heartwarming.
The reunion nearly brought tears.
It feels really great, like to see them when they came in a year and a half ago needing their hearts repaired, and then to see them now, like how much bigger they've gotten, how much weight they've been able to gain, and then what their future plans are, knowing that they actually have that future. It's just great.
This journey, however, wasn't all about tugging at heartstrings. At this time, I am just outside of the operating room where a little girl is receiving life-saving surgery. The staff that's inside brought a considerable amount of equipment and supplies with them. However, they've also been using lots of equipment that's already here, and that presented a fair share of challenges.
A lot of it's scale. I mean, the environment is a lot smaller, so it's a very tight space to work in. The machines we're using are very, very old, so it's hard actually to get even from the ventilation point of view, it's hard to ventilate properly.
The entire facility is just very, very different. This morning there were significant issues with the fluctuations in the power that were causing problems for equipment.
Cardiologist Greg Tatum says the availability of technological equipment is just completely different in the Philippines from what is often available in the U.S.
Dr. Tatum was the only cardiologist on the mission from the U.S., and he told me he was surprised to find out from doctors at the hospital that they don't have enough ventilators. Therefore, it's not uncommon for families to sit at a child's bedside to provide manual ventilation to prevent respiratory failure. There's still so much more ahead on Healing Hearts, Giving the Gift of Life. We'll hear from the children chosen to have the life-saving surgery, as we'll hear their inspirational stories of dreams that they can now fulfill. But up next, the local businessman behind this mission, why providing care for kids who wouldn't otherwise have had a chance at a healthy life is so close to his heart. That story and so much more right after this. Welcome back. Rotarians in the U.S. and in the Philippines helped raise over $124,000 to cover the cost of 10 open heart surgeries. And the man described as the heart and soul of this mission is a businessman who grew up in the Philippines, but who now calls Westchester his home.
It is very possible that in the 48 years since it celebrated its grand opening, several generations of children have been delighted by the miniature racetracks here at Elmsford Raceway. This state-of-the-art facility for slot car racing and its enduring popularity have created a brand that is well known in this Westchester community. But perhaps less well known is the man who started it all, Lou Del Rosario.
Children, of course, is very important to me and hopefully to everybody else. But it's been my experience, for instance, being in my business for 49 years, I have seen people grow up to be very successful in their fields. And that to me is a real incentive for me to keep on going on what I'm doing.
Del Rosario, at 80 years old, still has the energy, drive, and enthusiasm that you'll find in many of the young people who visit the raceway. Rob Railman, the executive director of Gift of Life International, believes it is because of Del Rosario's drive and determination that several lucky children in the Philippines are not only receiving open heart surgery that they otherwise would not have been able to afford, they're receiving a second chance at life.
The Philippines, for the last 12 years, Gift of Life has had a program here, but we never did medical missions. And Lou Del Rosario was a driving force behind the creation of the Gift of Life here in the Philippines. And he also was really a driving force in motivating Gift of Life International to put together the funding and the Gift of Life programs to support these medical missions. So, you know, Lou really is the heart and soul of these efforts.
This country needed a lot of help. And every little bit that I can do, I'm glad to do. We toured the country.
In 1950, when Lou Del Rosario was just 15 years old, he left the Philippines for the United States. In addition to starting a successful business and becoming a philanthropist, Del Rosario met the love of his life, Barbara, with whom he has 7 children and 19 grandchildren. While it has been nearly 65 years since this self-described family man has lived in the Philippines full-time, he has never forgotten where he came from. Del Rosario tells me prior to the medical missions taking place in the Philippines, he and his wife had hosted 8 Gift of Life recipients and their families at their home in Westchester. These families came from at least 4 different countries, and they stayed with the Del Rosarios anywhere between 2 weeks and 6 months.
Out of that, we had 2 kids from the Philippines, and I said, hey, the Philippines needs a lot of help. So I kind of concentrated all my work on the kids in the Philippines. So this is my venue, this is my work, and this is actually my whole life.
Del Rosario's insistence that a Gift of Life mission help children in the Philippines led to him reaching out to the Rotary Club of Makati West. Members from this club helped raise significant funds to help Del Rosario bring the first medical mission to the Philippine Children's Medical Center in April of 2013. Antonio Jun Templonting is a past district governor for the club, and he says Del Rosario's kindness and generosity to those who are less fortunate inspired him to help make his friend's dream a reality.
Without Lou, Gift of Life will not be here in the Philippines. What really inspired me is that many of the children from abroad, outside the U.S., will come for surgery. They cannot afford to stay in a hotel or anything. So he would invite them to stay in their house.
Because of Lou Del Rosario and Gift of Life International, dozens of deserving children here in the Philippines have been given a new lease on life. Yet with nearly 17,000 children being born each year in the Philippines with congenital heart disease, Del Rosario knows that Gift of Life can't help everyone.
when you start thinking about it, the number of kids that really need this operation is humongous. But what we have to do is you have to do it one child at a time.
He just hopes to give these brave young kids a fighting chance to pursue their dreams.
How does that make you feel when you see these success stories?
I can't explain it. All I can say is great, fantastic, and all the superlatives that you can actually think of.
Del Rosario also tells us the money raised will benefit between 30 to 45 additional children who are to receive interventional procedures to correct their heart problems. Those procedures should be completed by March of next year. All in all, the efforts of Gift of Life International have helped thousands of children from scores of countries. And up next, we'll meet a special young man who was given the gift of life in Quezon City. But it's the remarkable story behind how he got there that proves just how powerful love can be. And later, 1 year after undergoing risky surgery, this unstoppable 9-year-old takes us into her new healthy world and into her home. You don't want to miss this. And welcome back to Healing Hearts, Giving the Gift of Life. When it came to prioritizing the order in which patients would be operated on, the medical team felt it was in the best interest of all their patients to schedule the most complicated cases for the first and second day of surgeries. Up first, a 16-year-old named Arvin, who was chosen to go first because generally when it comes to open heart surgeries, the older you are, the more risky the surgery.
As his mother cried in the waiting area, and as his cousin tried to fight back tears, this brave 16-year-old named Arvin was under heavy sedation as a top-notch medical team performed the surgery he'd been needing to repair his heart.
He has a defect called tetralogy of Fallot. Basically it's a big hole in the wall of his heart, and then the outflow going to his lungs is very narrow. Part of the surgery is to do both of that, to fix both of that, to close the hole and make sure that the flow going into the lungs is wide open and unobstructed.
Surgeon Carl Reyes says the type of operation that Arvin required would ideally be performed on a patient who is not only much younger than Arvin, but whose heart disease is less advanced. At age 16, Arvin was old enough to understand the risks that were involved. But he also knew if he didn't have the operation, he might not live to see many more birthdays.
How are you feeling right now?
I don't know.
You don't know? Are you a little nervous? You scared? Well, you've been waiting for this for a long time now.
Yes.
Yeah, so you're excited too.
Yes.
When we first spoke with Arvin, right before his surgery, he was surprisingly calm. His cousin Yazare was a different story.
You're more nervous than he is.
Yeah, I think so. I did not sleep well.
Yazare tells me her cousin's lengthy journey to reach the operating table began when Arvin was diagnosed with congenital heart disease at just 3 months old. But with Arvin's father not able to earn enough money as a sidewalk vendor to pay for his son's surgery, Arvin's condition only got worse. So much so, he dropped out of high school.
He's very weak. If he cannot run. Even walking, he will be having problem with it. How many minutes of walking?
With hope in short supply, Yazare tells me she turned to Facebook, where she let all of her friends know that she desperately needed a foundation that could help her cousin. When one friend mentioned Gift of Life, Yazare went to its website and noticed a contact form.
For me, I am just trying. I just pray before I make the message that I will get some reply.
The response that came answered her prayers. Rob Railman, the executive director for Gift of Life International, reached out to Yazare personally. But even with Railman's help, Arvin's journey to the operating table was nearly cut short.
A few days ago, I was telling them he might not be able to be part of the group because when we look at his anatomy, he's kind of borderline.
What was the problem?
Well, his pulmonary arteries are quite small, and so that can be a disqualification for the total correction.
Dr. Jonas Del Rosario is the head of pediatric cardiology at the Philippine Children's Medical Center. While Arvin could have been disqualified then and there, Del Rosario tells me instead he had Arvin taken to a cath lab where he underwent a successful procedure that cleared his path to be operated on by the Gift of Life team.
So when you wake up later, hopefully she's one of the first people you see, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm telling him. When you will wake up, you're already in the room and you can see me and your mother, like, we will welcome you with a smile.
Just a few hours after Arvin was placed on the operating table, the promise his cousin had made was a promise she was able to keep.
Look at that smile. You are such a beautiful smile. You can't close your mouth because you're so happy.
I'm happy. She's speechless. She's very happy. She can now sleep well.
This being Arvin, though, perhaps it was only fitting that the surgery he had waited 16 years to have involved complications.
In surgery, the heart got a little distended, and what happened was it's called ventricular fibrillation. So the heart was fibrillating, and it took a while before the heart started to beat on its own. But once it started beating on its own, everything was fine. So after that, we're like, everything's okay.
With every passing day, and at an alarming rate, Arvin proved to his medical team and to himself that he would be more than just okay.
Just 3 days after Arvin received life-saving surgery, he was doing so well, doctors moved him out of ICU. You're doing good, right? Yes. Glad to hear that. Now, one person on this mission who did not wish to be identified told me he was so moved by Arvin's story that he promised to buy Arvin a pair of running shoes.
Arvin tells me because of his condition, he'd always been afraid to go running, and that he would often stay home while his friends went out and played. With his surgery considered a success, it's a whole new ballgame for Arvin, and it's a ballgame he's determined to be a part of.
So hopefully you just get stronger and stronger.
Yes. Yeah.
And pretty soon maybe you'll be running?
Yes.
Yeah? And remember those sneakers that Arvin was promised? Well, he finally has them. Here he is wearing them. And no doubt he's dreaming of putting them to really good use. I'm sure he will. Arvin can even use the little girl who we're about to introduce you to for inspiration. This remarkable young lady was among the first Filipinos to receive heart surgery through the gift of life. We'll share her story right after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Earlier in this broadcast, I mentioned this is actually the second medical mission to the Philippines for Duke University. The first was back in April of 2013. One patient who can certainly be considered a success story is a young girl who you're about to meet.
Just about every day after she gets home from school, you can usually find 9-year-old Shello involved in a heated game of badminton against one of her brothers.
Shello, you hungry?
No.
No. You want to play?
Yes.
Badminton, without question, is Shello's favorite sport. And while she and her brothers enjoyed the chicken and soda that one Rotarian had brought over for lunch, Shello was much more interested in being a kid and having some extra time to play. Shello's mother, Rachel, often watches from the sidelines as her daughter flicks birdies just outside of their home in Quezon City.
I'm so much happy, and I want her to stay that's so active. She has so many plans in her life.
While Shello's mom can now look ahead, making plans for her daughter's future was a much dicier prospect just 18 months earlier.
Shello's father, Paul, who I am sitting right next to, drives this contraption, which is called a jeepney. It's a very popular form of transportation here in the greater Manila area. However, it doesn't necessarily earn him a lot of money.
Shello's mother says her husband's job as a jeepney driver just never earns him enough money to pay for the expensive operation that their daughter needed. Doctors at the Philippine Children's Medical Center tell me the base fee for a private patient to receive that surgery is close to $15,000. The base fee for a charity patient is around $5,000. Rachel says it wasn't until she learned about the Gift of Life Foundation from workers at PCMC that she began to feel hope.
When we're starting to get a checkup here, and they told us that there's a Rotary Club, so we tell to other one member of the Rotary that we want my daughter to be operated, but we don't have financial, so they help us.
Rachel tells me her whole world changed when her only daughter was just 2 years old and developed a cough. Turns out it was much worse than that. Doctors here at PCMC told Rachel they wanted to do some additional tests after their initial exam caused them concern.
Suddenly heard something in her heart, and that's starting that she undergone ECG due to the echo, and they say that she had a open heart illness.
That condition would occasionally cause young Shello to go blue. One of her surgeons, Dr. Andy Lodge, explains.
Being blue is sort of lay terminology for being cyanotic or having a lower oxygen content in your blood. And the reason that happens in kids with congenital heart defects is that the red blood with the oxygen mixes with the blue blood without the oxygen, and so overall the oxygen content in the blood that's circulating in their body is lower. And correcting the heart defect generally corrects that.
With her daughter selected to receive surgery as part of the Gift of Life mission, and with that surgery considered a success, Rochelle finds it incredible how in just 1.5 years, her daughter bears no resemblance to the weak child who you see in these pictures. Instead, Shello is in great health, loved by family, and above all else, she is happy.
You feel strong?
Yes.
Yes? You feel happy?
Yes.
Yes? When you wake up in the morning, do you have a smile on your face?
Yes.
Yes?
I just look at her with perfect.
Do you ever think sometimes, why did this happen to my child?
Yes, of course. But I know that God has always have a plan with us. Every struggle, she always have this answer.
Shello tells us her favorite subject in school is Filipino, and that she loves school so much she would like to be a teacher. Well, this does it for us now, but the stories continue online. Go to our website at fios1news.com for more information on Gift of Life International. Plus, we'll have more stories from the Philippines, including how doctors make the difficult decision of selecting only 10 patients from the dozens who apply. Plus, in their own words, what the medical staff takes away from this mission. Also, the families of patients share their gratitude for the life-saving surgery. We thank you for joining us for this special presentation, Healing Hearts, Giving the Gift of Life. I'm Ron Lee, and for all of us here at RNN and Fios One News, we wish you a wonderful holiday season.